You know Graybar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Graybar does that.
Welcome into the latest edition of the Show Before the Show podcast, the official podcast of minor league baseball, as we come to you on the day after the major league trade deadline in 2022, and also a sad day for baseball with the passing of the legendary Vin Scully. We're set to talk about all that and a whole lot more. My name is Tyler Maughan, Sam Dykstra, and Benjamin Hill in New York City. Fellas, what's going on? Sam's got the Dodgers shirt on today, deservedly so. It's a tough baseball day, and we're going to talk some about Vin Scully, but how are you guys doing?
Yeah, okay. Trying to keep my head on straight after what was a very busy trade deadline to begin with. And then, like you said, ending the day hearing about Vin was just as if, my head wasn't spinning enough. It got sent almost in the other direction at the same velocity. A very exciting day, ending on a very dour note yesterday. But, generally okay. It was nice to remember so many good things about what Vin Scully brought to baseball, and I'm sure we'll get to that here in a moment. And then with the trade deadline itself, just remembering the exciting things that are still coming to the sport.
Ben, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm Ben Hill, live and direct from Flatbush, Brooklyn, Ditmas Park specifically, here at home in the home office with the crib right behind me and a changing table. This is where the work gets done on Wednesdays. When we're recording this segment. But yeah, like Sam said, I mean, Sam and I everyone in baseball is busy right now. Sam and I are working on, for the most part, different things. But I was on the road last week, got back from Wichita on Sunday. And we got another trip coming up that we'll talk about. So this is a little brief respite from the road right now in the midst of a very busy time.
Well, it is fitting that Ben is coming to us from Flatbush, the place where Vin Scully broadcasted his first seasons as a major league radio voice for the Brooklyn Dodgers, and somebody who became really not just the voice of baseball, but kind of the voice of sports in America. I mean, when you think of the sports broadcaster imitation that people think of in their heads, everybody's trying to do with Vin Scully. And he passed away yesterday at the age of 94 years old, 67 seasons as a broadcaster in the Dodgers organization. Just as incredible a life story as there can be. And for three of us, baseball fans who grew up in different parts of the country and following different teams and all that, Vin Scully was the rare thing that he kind of united all baseball fans. I mean, the most universally beloved broadcaster in the history of sports, I would say, in this country. And somebody who, it's obviously devastating to lose a titan and a legend like that. But I would imagine, I never met Vin Scully, didn't know Vin Scully in a personal sense, but I would imagine if anybody was going to say that it was the happiest and best life that a person could have led, it was Vin Scully. And, as devastated as we are as the living to no longer have him among us, it's sort of time that Vin Scully belongs to the ages. And I know that he was and had said repeatedly that he really couldn't wait to join his wife, Sandy, after his passing. She passed a few years ago, and, to be in your mid-90s and still be that madly in love with somebody is pretty incredible. And that's really the word that defines Vin Scully's life, and his legacy is incredible. This is a guy who won the Ford C. Frick Award, the baseball prize for a broadcaster being recognized for his lifetime service to the game. And then he broadcasted more years after that than he did before that. 34 years after he won the Ford Frick Award, that he was still the voice of the Dodgers, that he was still the voice of the World Series for so long on ABC, that he was, broadcasting NFL games and doing the PGA and all that type of stuff. He is a titan to have lost, obviously, but somebody who lived as good of a life as any human being could ever hope to live.
Yeah. Did anything ever make you pull up a chair more than just hearing out of earshot Vin Scully saying, "Did I ever tell you about the time?"
Yeah.
And it didn't matter what followed. Like, the first thing that might come to your mind when I say that phrase and Vin Scully might be him talking about the time he went ice skating with Jackie Robinson. And Jackie Robinson had never been ice skating before, but was so confident about his athletic abilities, being a football player, a baseball player, an all-around athlete at UCLA. He's like, I can handle it. And he did. And they raced around the Catskills on ice skates. But he just had so many stories. Like, after news of his passing dropped last night, everybody came out with a personal story of just, hey, here's where I was when I listened to Vin, or here's what happened when I interacted with Vin. One person shared on Twitter, and I wish I had the name handy. Basically, they went up to him and said, hey, you are the voice of sports to me. I could listen to you read the want ads, and I would be happy. Vin Scully was sitting in this coffee shop with a newspaper and was like, you know what, let's do it. And for 90 seconds, just read off the want ad, like in his own Vin Scully way. Any batter, any pitcher that came up, he would find a story for them to tell and also weave in the gameplay. One of my favorite things about Vin Scully saying, like, here's a story about Madison Bumgarner. By the way, there's the 2-2 pitch. And back to the story about Madison Bumgarner, Johnny Gomes, like any of these guys. He understood the rhythm of baseball. He understood the importance of baseball and the importance of storytelling. It's a game in which not a lot happens in between pitches. You need to fill time. He had a background in radio going back to his Brooklyn days. And so much of that was, you need to be peppy, you need to be quick fire. But also Vin Scully was defined by the silences. Kirk Gibson hitting a home run, knowing to let the moment sit for, I think it was like 39 seconds or something like that. He called Hank Aaron's home run the time he broke Babe Ruth's record. He was there for so much. Just being able to tell a story about Jackie Robinson on ice skates and telling that on, a Dodgers broadcast from Los Angeles, not from Brooklyn, in a cable news net. Like, there's just, he reached so many people through sports, through their television, through their radio. That's one thing he said is, like, I first got in touch with you all through your transmitter radio. People just bring it to the game, and they would hear him tell a joke and they would laugh in the stadium, and just getting that instant feedback. Like, it takes a special person to last 67 years in anything, but to do it as long as he did, as great as he did, to get us as excited in the 2010s about hearing Vin Scully talk as people were in the 60s and 70s is incredible. It's one of those moments that you're sad he's gone, but he lived a heck of a life, a long life, because we had another, it's not our sport, so we won't get too much into it, but Bill Russell passing this week had the same feeling of, like, look at all he accomplished. And it's sad he's gone. It's sad he isn't here to tell those stories anymore, but those stories live on because they're insanely good, and there are just so many of them. And it's just so easy to make those guys live on, because we're going to be talking to them decades beyond just how long they were here on Earth.
Yeah, I grew up in, outside of Philadelphia, and that was before, being able to just listen to or watch any MLB game that you wanted. And, I loved Harry Kalas, the Phillies announcer. And I would hear people say that Vin Scully was the best. And as a kid who was a huge Phillies fan and kind of territorial, I was like, Vin Scully, like, who is this guy? No one is as good as Harry Kalas. And I loved how excited Harry Kalas would get, on the home run calls, swinging a long drive, and get super excited. And then the few times I would hear Vin on a national broadcast, I'd be like, this guy doesn't get excited. This guy's no good. This is dumb that people like him so much. And then I got older and, started to appreciate who he was and what he was about. And around 2010, I think, is really the first time I started. I had MLB TV and was watching it on a regular basis. I was just getting really established with this job, going on road trips, living a late night life in general. And I really got in the habit of watching the Dodgers late at night, 11, midnight, having a glass of Jameson on the rocks and listening to Vin Scully. And it took not much time at all to realize, oh, wow, now that I'm able to tune in on a nightly basis and hear this guy at work, this is the real deal. And I just loved sitting there at night in a dark living room, just relaxing and hearing him. And like Sam said, the stories that he could weave in and out of every game, every pitch. I mean, Sam mentioned the Madison Bumgarner story. I saw that shared on Twitter today. It involved like a snake eating rabbits and Madison Bumgarner cutting up the snake and finding a live rabbit inside it. And he weaved that story, or at least one of his Madison Bumgarner stories, just into the broadcast. There was a very random moment. I was watching a game in 2010, 2011, and the Dodgers had a relief pitcher named Ramon Troncoso at the time. And he got knocked around, didn't have a good outing. And when he was walking off the field, Vin Scully called him a disconsolate Troncoso. And for some reason, disconsolate Troncoso just stuck in my head forever, to the point where it's a reference that only I have. But when I see a pitcher in that circumstance leaving, getting taken out of the game after a bad outing, I'll be like, oh, look at that disconsolate Troncoso. It just became my own baseball term based on something Vin Scully said, just the way those two words sounded, disconsolate Troncoso. But he, did that for 67 years. It's incalculable, the amount of people he influenced who loved listening to him. And going back to Harry Kalas, when Harry Kalas died in 2009, that was like a death in the family for me. I was calling my family members. I went to Harry Kalas's funeral. He just meant so much to me as a Phillies fan. So when Vin died last night, that was my first thought, like, wow, we all love Vin, but it was kind of from afar. But if we grew up in LA listening to him every day, I don't think I'd be able to function today. I mean, it would just be devastating. But it's devastating because of how great he was when he was alive, and how much joy he provided. I mean, to just look back on your life and say, I provided this much joy to this many people. I mean, is there a better way to live?
Yeah, I think that nails it. And how lucky are we to have gotten a chance to experience him for some of our lives, and thankfully with the advent of MLB TV, and the At Bat app, and being able to listen to him on the radio or watch him on TV, the countless people that Vin Scully touched and made smile and made happy, and provided the backdrop, the soundtrack for their summers and for their lives in so many ways. Yeah, I mean, the amount of people that I know who grew up in Southern California or in Los Angeles, and really did feel as though he was kind of a member of their extended families. Even just seeing people sharing their stories, Sam, like you talked about on Twitter yesterday, friend of the podcast, Todd Radom, the great graphic designer, he shared a story on Twitter last night, and he told me this story in person at the All-Star game last year, in which he was on the same flight as Vin once. And everybody got their bags, and he's standing at the baggage carousel waiting for his bag, and Vin Scully's the only other person there at the baggage carousel with him. And after a few minutes of silence, Vin Scully finally pops up and says, I guess they must have had our bags in the back of the plane. And just, those little moments that people will carry with them forever because they got to have a momentary interaction with Vin Scully. There are not many times when a person passes away and you can say that they were the undisputed greatest that ever did whatever it was that they did. So often in life, we have all of those debates. Are you a LeBron person, or are you a Jordan person? Are you a Babe Ruth person, or a Barry Bonds person, or whatever it is? But for Vin Scully, I think there are very few people who would say that there was anyone ever better than him, and a pretty incredible life. I think one thing that I read yesterday, somebody said he is the broadcaster that every broadcaster tries to be. And the only thing that I would disagree with in that is I don't think anyone tries to imitate him, because nobody knows that it can be done. I think everybody aspires to be that level of great, but he was such a unique figure in the way he broadcasted, the way he threaded stories, the way he did make you feel as though you were the person there with him. I mean, that's the fundamental thing that people are taught as sportscasters, is try to, speak to someone who's listening to you on the radio or watching you on TV as though they are a close friend of yours that you're getting to describe a game to because they can't be there. And Vin Scully did that for literally billions of people over the course of his lifetime. And, I saw one thing yesterday that said it's very conceivable and extraordinarily likely that Vin Scully was listened to by lots of people who were born in the 1800s and lots of people who were born in the 2000s. And that is, I mean, if there is any more testament, as Ben said, if you can touch that many people, make that many people happy, that is all that any human being could ever ask for in life. A guy who didn't broadcast in the minor leagues because he didn't need to. He got a chance to start under Red Barber in the 1940s and move straight into being the voice of the Dodgers, I think at 25 years old, and is truly one of the greatest figures in the history of baseball. and he will be very sorely missed, obviously by all of us who loved him. But what an incredible life, and condolences to Dodgers fans. We know we have a ton of Dodgers fans who listen to this show, and for everybody who felt as though he was a piece of them and they were a piece of him, we're thinking of you today as well.
Yeah, no, totally. And I really like what you said there about him speaking and always trying to be like, it's a two-way conversation. You're just not hearing the other side of the conversation because it's you. And I think, especially in what we do, and we cover minor league baseball, and Tyler, you live this life, is most minor league broadcasters, it's just one person in that booth.
Yeah.
So even if somebody's not trying to imitate Vin, they know what that's like. So often now at the big leagues, it's broadcaster, analyst, who's usually a former player, and they're talking, and you're just like sitting in on that, and that's really cool. But it takes a special broadcaster, and it takes a special situation to really make it seem like a two-way conversation when one person is talking. And I think him setting that as an example just gives so many people something to look at and try to emulate as best you can in your own way. Don't try to be Vin. You're only going to set yourself up for disappointment in that end. Put your own spin on the ball. That's what he did, and carry the torch forward. But yeah, when you're talking about just one person in the booth trying to bring people into the game, that's what we have in minor league baseball in so many stadiums across the country.
And, I like what you said too, Sam, about how much Vin Scully let the silences tell the story of the moments. And this is the last piece. We'll wrap it up and not be too sad for the show today. But I think that's an important lesson for not just young broadcasters, but for a lot of us in life to learn, is that you don't have to talk through every moment. You don't have to talk over every moment. You don't have to be the active participant in every moment. Sometimes the moment is big enough for itself. And that's what Vin Scully knew and utilized best. You mentioned the Kirk Gibson home run and the Hank Aaron home run. I think after Hank Aaron hit 715, Vin Scully was quiet for something like 2 minutes and 15 seconds, and then talked and explained the magnitude of the moment. But let those moments be themselves in your lives. And if you are a young broadcaster, somebody who listens to it, that's an important skill to learn. And what an incredible guy and an incredible life. And somebody who, as I said, will be tremendously missed in the game of baseball. But there is nothing that Vin Scully would want more than for three guys who love baseball to be able to talk baseball on the day after his passing. And that's what we're going to do today. And fittingly enough, we get a chance to talk to Ben about two stops in the Dodger system. We heard about Oklahoma City last week. Ben got a chance to join us from on the road in Oklahoma, but he also hit Tulsa, which was a spot that I know we've discussed, the location in the Greenwood neighborhood and how gorgeous that ballpark is and what an anchor it is for the community. Oklahoma City, Tulsa, and then you also got a chance to travel to Wichita. Take us through the things that we didn't get to talk about last week, Ben.
Yeah, I think we talked quite a bit about Oklahoma City last week, and I've got a story up on MILB.com now about the Del City High School Band, whose students work at the concession stands to help fund the program. And that to me was a interesting story to write, an angle I hadn't covered before. But, a lot of minor league ballparks do have concession workers who work on behalf of nonprofit organizations. So it was interesting to talk to the band directors and a couple of students and understand how that arrangement works. And Del City is a Title I school. A lot of the kids, are low income, and the school doesn't have a huge budget, and they get approximately half of their budget for the program via working at the concession stands for every single home game. And so I thought that was an interesting angle to pursue, and that story's up right now. And then, as Tyler said, I went to Tulsa. I don't know. I don't pay attention to the game much when I'm at a game with everything else I'm trying to do. The game was like 2 hours and 5 minutes, 2 hours and 10 minutes. And I barely came up for air when I was there. Between just walking around the ballpark, getting a tour. I was there 10 years ago, and a lot has changed, both in the surrounding neighborhood with a lot of new additions to the neighborhood. As Tyler mentioned, that's in the Greenwood district, which has a really long and interesting and, at points, absolutely traumatic and horrific history. With the Tulsa Race Massacre of 1921 taking place there, but there's a lot to explore in the area related to that. Then the ballpark itself, looks great. A lot, as I said, a lot of new additions, new group and gathering social areas, new concession stands from the time I was last there. It just felt really fresh. I was pied in the face by the mascot Hornsby on a between inning contest. I threw baseballs off the roof of a nearby building onto the concourse as part of a between inning contest. Met with my designated eater. The highlight was street fries, which is this tray of fries with barbecue, pork and cheese and sour cream and everything else. I mean, just kind of phenomenal. And I interviewed the owners, and that'll be a story coming soon. Jeff and Dale Hubbard, whose father owned the team starting in the 80s. Now the Hubbard brothers, run the team, and they have an interesting story in that they weren't interested in taking over the team at first, and then fell in love with Tulsa as their father did. And now they're at every home game just working. When I was there, Dale was driving a golf cart, shuttling fans back and forth between the ballpark and the parking lot. Jeff was at the front gate handing out bobbleheads. So just kind of an interesting ownership group dynamic. And Jeff Hubbard actually played in minor league baseball. Not just that, he played for the Tulsa Drillers in the early 90s at a point when his dad owned the team. So how often does that happen when you're, because in minor league baseball, he wasn't signed. They were a Rangers affiliate then. He wasn't signed with the Rangers because his dad owned the Drillers. It just happened. And kind of interesting backstory there to own the team in which you played for that your father once owned. So anyway, that story is coming soon. Should be up on the site later this week. In fact, perhaps the same day this podcast goes up. And yes, Wichita Riverfront Stadium, that was the final ballpark I had yet to visit in the active minor league ballpark category. And I had great 2 nights in Wichita. The weather cooled down a little bit. Lots of room to move in that ballpark. Like a lot of new ballparks, I think a lot still to come, both in, the ballpark itself and the surrounding area. Certainly the surrounding area. The ballpark is on the Arkansas River. It's called Riverfront Stadium. It's the Arkansas River. To other parts of the country, it's the Arkansas River. But if you're in Wichita, please know it's the Arkansas River. So a lot of good stuff from Wichita, getting the lay of the land at that place. Very friendly people. It just seemed like I was just wandering the concourse, and there was always somebody to talk to, always someone approaching for a conversation, always someone saying hello, both in and out the ballpark. I just felt very comfortable in Wichita. Really enjoyed my 2 nights there. And we've talked about the team's Turbo Tubs identity. They play as the Turbo Tubs on Thursdays. I was not there for a Turbo Tub game, but that identity relates to tub races on the Arkansas River. And, a troll is driving the tub in the team logo. And I visited the troll, which is a chained up troll statue underneath a grate near the Keeper of the Plains Memorial, which is just a short walk from the ballpark on the river. So if you're going to Wichita, make sure to find the troll. It's one of the most disturbing and weird statues you'll ever find. And I knew to go look for it because of the Turbo Tubs identity. That was on my Wichita to-do list. Find that troll. And so that was the highlight of the trip as well. So yeah, action-packed. Got back on Sunday. And as I said, week at home before hitting the road again.
And would you say there's a defining feature about Wichita? I feel like you said there's plenty of room to move. It's very spacious, and being on the river, maybe that's it. But now having seen it and experienced it for 2 nights, what would you say is the one thing anybody who visits really takes away from that place?
Well, I do think the location is the number one thing in downtown and on the river. I think is like the number one aspect about it. They're the wind surge, but obviously, or maybe not obviously, but Wichita has a big aviation history, and some of their former teams were named the Arrows, AEROS. And so there is plane-related architecture in the stadium. One of the ballpark bars, had kind of steel rivet type wall paneling and on the bar counter, mimicking a plane. And the scoreboard has like what resemble the wings of a plane on top and below it. So there is definitely nods to the aviation history there as well. But yeah, on the whole, I think it's location. And, throughout the ballpark right now, there's, permanent fencing, but there's certain areas that have chain link. And anytime you see chain link, it means because that area is going to change with new buildings around it, new areas in the ballpark. And one thing I forgot to mention, another huge standout is the Wichita Baseball Museum, a building on the concourse just opened. And that was really cool. It's an interactive place. It can be used as a party space. A lot of great displays related to Wichita baseball history. It's divided up into 3 sections. You know, 9 innings. The first 3 innings follow the National Baseball Congress, you know, a collegiate tournament held in Wichita, which that tournament was known for like 24-hour around the clock baseball, and they had a time clock. And there's actually a time clock from the NBC, the National Baseball Congress, in that Wichita Baseball History Museum. And I thought that was pretty cool, with time clocks all the rage these days, to see what was maybe the first, you know, time clock in use in baseball history. There's also a Negro League history component, and a really interesting story I'd like to explore is a Negro League team called the Monrovians at a spot near the ballpark. I think it was called Ackerman Field. I have to look into that. The ballpark doesn't exist anymore, but there was a baseball game between Wichita's Negro League team and the KKK, which is just, wow, what a moment in baseball history. And the museum has some info on that. I need to look into it more. All I can tell you that I remember offhand is that the Negro League team, the Monrovians, won, and there was no incidents of, you know, violence of any kind reported. But yeah, what a game that must have been on a lot of levels. And then there's a lot of stuff related to Wichita pro baseball history, including the fact that the Wichita Wranglers, you know, who played in Wichita through 2007. They played at Lawrence Dumont Stadium, and Riverfront Stadium, the new ballpark, is in almost the exact location. And the baseball museum has signage from Lawrence Dumont as well. So when, you know, longtime Wichita baseball fans come to a game to see the wind surge, you know, they're going to the same basic spot, you know, in which they saw probably a lot of games through the years, both collegiate and professional, at Lawrence Dumont Stadium, which I believe opened in 1934 and, you know, lasted a long time until it was demolished and eventually made way for Riverfront Stadium.
That is pretty incredible. And it's, you know, it's sort of fitting that we touch on so many historic things on a day in which we talked about Vin Scully, but the amount of history and history making events that occur really the nation over, you know, when it comes to baseball and its long roots in this country is pretty incredible stuff. And we've got an event similar to some history making events that is getting set to take place next week in Iowa. Last year, of course, they made history at the Field of Dreams, the New York Yankees and the Chicago White Sox with Tim Anderson's walk-off homer at the Field of Dreams. This year, for the first time, minor league baseball will play a Field of Dreams game as well. On August 9th, as the Quad Cities River Bandits and the Cedar Rapids Colonels, two High A Midwest League teams, will square off. Gents, you guys will both be there. Take us through what the plan is, Ben. I know, you know, Iowa, you're obviously no stranger to traveling to parks in Iowa and getting a chance to see the Midwest League for what it is, but this is an entirely new experience.
Yeah, one, because it's the Field of Dreams game, a minor league game in an entirely new location, not just for me, but for anyone who will be attending it on the minor league side. And another very unique aspect of this trip is, I am almost, in the vast majority of cases through my career, a solo traveler, but on this trip, I will be accompanied by Sam Dykstra and Kelsey Hennigan of MLB.com fame. And I do not use the word fame lightly. So the three of us are going to be traveling to Iowa. And not only that, we're going to drive to Iowa. We still have to work out some of the details, but we're going to leave on Sunday and get there Monday night and try to stop on, you know, as many baseball themed locations as we can along the way. So definitely stay tuned for that. Follow myself, Sam, and Kelsey, you know, on social media, Instagram, Twitter, and probably the minor league baseball account as well. But we'll have a lot coming from the trip itself, as well as the game, which takes place Tuesday night between Cedar Rapids and Quad Cities. Cedar Rapids, who are usually the Colonels, are playing as the Bunnies, and Quad Cities are playing as usually the River Bandits. They're playing as the Davenport Bunnies. So both these identities harken back to, you know, an era of baseball over 100 plus years ago. Davenport Blue Sox hosting the Cedar Rapids Bunnies. So it should be a really interesting experience all around.
Yeah, we haven't figured out yet who is going to be the Kevin Costner, who's going to be the James Earl Jones, who, if anybody's going to be taking anybody hostage on this journey. Who's going to be playing the Moonlight Graham? I don't know. We'll have to figure it out. It's not going to be a 1-for-1 remake of the Field of Dreams in our travel out west, but I'm excited to just see what we see along the way. And you know, it's a unique game, so we might as well travel out there in a unique way too, and try to recreate the movie best we can. So I'm very excited for that journey and just to, experience a game with Ben. I mean, we've been doing MLB Pipeline Games of the Month this year, which is a little bit different experience from what Ben does. So I'm going to be taking my experience from that and doing, player interviews and ballpark tours that we've done on social media with the Ben's Biz experience at a brand new ballpark that is not going to be played all the time. It's not going to be introducing you to, hey, come down here next week. It's going to be, hey, this is a special place. Come check out what it's like to play in the middle of a cornfield. And also the game itself. Like, what is the game itself going to be like? Last year's game between the White Sox and Yankees obviously ended in heroics for Tim Anderson. I don't think we're going to be able to beat that this year, but it was also very much a slugfest. Why is that? Is there something about that area that makes the ball travel well, or was it just a one-off? Anything can happen in one crazy game. So we'll see how it's going to play out next Tuesday between Quad Cities and Cedar Rapids, but very excited for that.
Yeah, and I understand the throwback identities and why they're being used. It makes sense for this nostalgia-tinged historical game. But, yeah, the Cedar Rapids team is called today the Colonels. So the irony of the only corn-themed team in baseball changing its name when they play at the Field of Dreams is not lost on me.
That is a very good point that I had not thought of. The game coming up on August 9th. You can follow all of our coverage at MILB.com. And he is Benjamin Hill. Enjoy the road trip, and we'll talk to you next week.
Looking forward to it. We'll have lots to talk about. We had lots to talk about today. We're good at talking.
That is true. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Tyler. Thanks, Sam.
You buy organic. You read ingredient labels. You care about what goes into your body. So why not think about birth control the same way? Natural Cycles is the only FDA-cleared birth control app that's 100% hormone-free. It's based on science and uses your body temperature to identify which days you can and cannot get pregnant. No synthetic hormones, no side effects, just science you can trust. Save 15% with code RADIO15 at naturalcycles.com.
Well, as we talked about previously, Sam and I are very excited to go see the MILB at Field of Dreams game in Dyersville, Iowa on Tuesday, August 9th. That game is going to be between the Cedar Rapids Colonels playing as the Bunnies and the Quad City River Bandits playing as the Blue Sox. I got that right. And we want to talk about this game more. And to do that, we have a very special guest, the general manager of the Cedar Rapids Colonels, or Bunnies, if you will, Scott Wilson. Scott, thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Pleasure.
And so before we get into the game itself, you've been with the Colonels for what, the better part of 2 decades now?
Yeah, 17 years. So
17 years. And prior to that, you're an Iowa guy through and through, correct?
Yep. So 17 years here. And before that, yeah, I've been in Iowa most of my 52 years. So yeah, and right here in this area, most of my life. Grew up here, left here for about 8 or 9 years, about 10 years doing a retail traveling career, and then I'm back. So
yeah, and so obviously, I mean, the whole country knows the movie Field of Dreams, but for you being an Iowa baseball team and from Iowa, what has that movie meant to you in your life, and just what role does it play in the state at large?
So it's it's really interesting. It's super cool to have that just an hour away from us. When you're watching it with any friends or family, I mean, everybody relates to it in some capacity. I thought it was special already, and then a few years ago, a young teenager made an error and went onto the field and did some donuts and tore it up. And so myself and the Quad Cities team and the Clinton team at that point in time went up there and assisted with the repair of the field. So I've got a little blood, sweat, and tears into it. So now it's even, the movie field itself, I've even got that little attachment to it. So I really like it. During pandemic year, we went up there and it was really busy when they had dining in the outfield. I mean, folks were coming there and they had tables just spaced out, 30 feet apart, and they were having dining in the outfield. So what a cool way, sort of to keep utilizing the field in all capacities, and to think the number of folks from around the world that come to see that field every single year. And they share the numbers from, Japan, where it's super popular for folks to come over and be able to even do that. So when they talked about this game, I love the throwback. I love that what it's talking about is the 125 years of history of both of our teams, Cedar Rapids and Quad Cities, has in baseball in this area, what we've meant to Eastern Iowa. And I think that's tremendous. And it sort of just keeps that going, because I don't want there to ever be, a generation that doesn't see this movie and be able to attach to it. And how do you not look at this movie and not romanticize baseball? I mean, that's where I'm at. I was like, it's just, even if you're not a baseball fan, I mean, you watch this movie, you are. I mean, you have to be.
Yeah. And you said you already put your, blood, sweat, and tears into this field, very familiar with the location, but being involved in the game itself, if you can take us through that process from your perspective, from the team's perspective, how did you first get approached about playing in this game? And, what was the process been like of being involved?
So it's unusual for me because on my schedule, it's a road game. So I'm working really hard for this road game at this point in time. I mean, we're doing all kinds of stuff, but so the Quad Cities started a conversation last fall, and I think Peter Woodfork approached me at winter meetings and said they had started conversations, and would we be, open to it, interested, all this. Absolutely. I mean, it kind of sounds cool. I mean, that we're talking about this, months away, and to be able to do that. And it just, it started kind of snowballing, I think, from there. Because it is a Quad Cities home game, there are some things that MLB and MILB needed to do to work out sort of purchasing that game from them, making them whole on that Tuesday night, and working with all of us, like busing. And then, I guess it's right on top of the All-Star game and everything else. So it's been a very busy couple of weeks getting everything finalized. All the uniforms are now in-house. We're doing some promo pieces for that. But in being involved in the game leading up to it, these 2 weeks leading up to it, it's been absolutely crazy. I probably have 60 emails and text messages, which my phone is beeping again, going off, and they're all about FoD. I mean, right now, I mean, it's like this game is going to be so crazy next Tuesday night, and both Quad Cities and I are in the middle of a homestand right now. So we're still trying to play our regular games and prepare for this game next Tuesday. But our board of directors couldn't be more excited. Our foundation board, all of our fans, to think that the game is sold out at this point in time, with 7,800 people coming to more than double the population of Dyersville on a night to watch a minor league game between two teams, but with 125 years of history on each team. There's just so much nostalgia going to be happening at this game. I think that they're going to do the pregame well. I thought MLB did a terrific job last year with that whole major league game, and I'm looking for that same ambiance for this minor league game. And our players are starting to get excited about it. I think the fact that it comes 2 weeks after the draft and a week after the trade deadline, our clubhouse is still looking forward to it now, after those that are still available to play in this game. So.
Yeah, and you mentioned just the ambiance of it. I think anybody who watched that game last year between the White Sox and Yankees felt like it was an entire production. It was a baseball game at the center, but it felt like watching a movie. This is a minor league game, and minor league games bring in their own level of entertainment. And, like you said, there is going to be that throwback nature with the Blue Sox and the Bunnies as well. Is there anything you can preview? We don't want to spoil any surprises or anything that's coming, but is there anything you can preview about what that ambiance is going to be like in a kind of uniquely minor league way?
Yeah, in our world, we've been giving a master list. It's really interesting. I think I've went through it with the team downstairs. So our bus leaves here like 11:45 to head up. They're going to stop at a small town police station about 8 minutes outside of Dyersville. Have a police escort into town after MLB security searches the bus and does this. So this police escort thing's kind of cool, because I think the players on the bus feel pretty important when you're being led down the interstate or the highway at that point in time, leading into Dyersville, and then pull into town around the lunch hour. They'll arrive, both buses, but both teams will arrive at the field between 1:15, 1:30 type time. The field, it doesn't open to the public until 3. So at that point in time, there's a lot of different minute by minute things that are kind of going on. They are going to film live intros. They want it like Monday Night Football, like, hey, I'm Seth Gray, I'm from blah, 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 Ohio. And, introductions of all of the players. They want to film and have that as well. But more importantly, there's an hour and a half there where there's nobody but the teams. available. So they want them to walk the movie site, play catch on that movie site field, walk the corn like we all saw the big leaguers doing last year, taking selfies left and right, to be able to do that. I think giving the guys the opportunity to do that is really what they're super excited about at this point in time. My team oftentimes en route to Appleton will stop by the field, just get out, play a little catch on the field, and then head on up to Appleton because we always think it's nostalgic. I'm going to make the players think it's nostalgic because we think it's cool. So on those bus trips, once in a while, we always drop off and make that happen. So I think the guys are excited to have some time to wander and do those kind of things. Because the night it's going to be crazy. I can't imagine the adrenaline you get when you walk out on that field. We've heard some really cool things, things that baseball people don't. I mean, baseball people know, but other people maybe don't. Where it sits, just imagining this field at night, you're out in the middle of nowhere, so there's no other lights. So you think about how well you're going to be able to see the ball, and everybody wants to ask Tim Anderson that same question, like, how well did you see the ball coming at you when it's pitch black at night and the only light is the light on the fields? You don't have to worry about a batter's eye. There's nobody out there in the cornfield. I mean, it's not, those are the kind of scenarios you think about. It's like complete black sky around you and a ball coming at you. Like, what's that look like? A dodgeball? I mean, it's like so much bigger. And so those kind of things that we, I was just talking with some of the guys about it like that. And, I think there's excitement down there. The interesting part about it is it's minor league baseball and we're a week away from the game, but we're not ready to fill the pass list yet because you never know who's going to get injured above us, who's going to be able to do those kind of things, and who's going to be on the roster next, Tuesday when we open that road trip with the Quad Cities. So, like I said, it really was their home game, and at this point in time, it's a road game for both of us because MLB owns the game and purchased it. That's the biggest question has been like, why can't you guys sell merchandise? Because it's not our game. I mean, we're allowed to sell merchandise 5 days after the game to be able to do that. So unless I'm crazy, I haven't even seen that much merch. I'm excited to get to the game because I want to find something that has bunnies on it. I mean, I've seen everything the players get to take and keep, and I'm thinking, doggone it, if I was only the size of a player, and I'm not. So that's like, I don't get one of the sweatshirts or the undershirts or all of those kind of scenarios. So the guys love the uniforms. I love that they look wool, but are now polyester. And we did a throwback uniform in 2005. And we did it in still not a wool blend, but it was a weird thing that was super hot. And now it's not. Now it's going to be a very comfortable uniform that is, the guys are excited because they're going to wear the short knicker pants with the tall socks. And, we've never done that. I mean, there's occasionally a guy who comes in from college that still wants to show a little sock, but the rest of the staff breaks him of it sooner or later and goes with the, you got to hook your back cleat on the thing and wear long pants. And, I love the old nostalgic look, so I'm excited about it.
Yeah, very excited to see that. We've talked about how Iowa relates to the film Field of Dreams, but this is kind of an introduction for a lot of people, maybe people who didn't watch the game last year and want to tune in this year to Iowa baseball, just generally. And like you said, you have a long history in the state. What is the Iowa brand of baseball, maybe away from Field of Dreams?
Gosh, I try to relate that back to a lot of things. I mean, I guess in our world, the biggest things that come up for me whenever the difference is it's really Midwest League. I mean, but it's like when you think about, kind of where all of us are that have been around here for so long, there's nothing else for folks to do in the summertime in Iowa. I mean, you're either, you plant your fields or you do your crops and that kind of stuff. And yes, the big cities are here, but, from Iowa's perspective, baseball's it. I mean, people live this. They want this. They want to be a part of this. And I look back at it and think our host families were some of the very first people to purchase tickets when we went live with staff. They wanted to make sure they were on that list to be able to do it. The lifelong relationships that these players create with our fans and our host families, it's incredible. I mean, it's absolutely an attachment. Like we have an Aiden. I just go back. We have an Aiden Hart scholarship here. When Nick was played here in 2009, and then when he passed away, I mean, at that time, one of his favorite places to have played when he passed away in 2009, his parents said, were in Cedar Rapids. So they created a scholarship here. We now have a scholarship for both a male and a female team player scholarship that they are involved in choosing every single year on that. And, that speaks volumes about, how the relationship with the fans and the relationships with these host families and how it's lifelong. To be able to do that. So I'm excited that, people are going to come in, and I'm hoping, we get to show off Iowa nice, and Iowa isn't all cornfields. It's kind of cool that the stadium is in the middle of one, but there's some actual towns in Iowa and cities and folks that we live here. I was like, I didn't grow up on a farm. I just went to visit them once in a while and then happily got to leave after the weekend of my cousin's farms, because baling hay is hard work and, taught me how to pull a tarp though. I guess it prepared me for that. So
you heard it here first. There are actual towns in Iowa, not just cornfields.
Hopefully not first. Hopefully people have
yeah.
I guess
you heard it here reiterated.
Oh, it might be a first for some people.
It might be.
It could be. There's some East Coast folks that I'm sure are not familiar with the towns in Iowa.
Yeah, absolutely. Dyersville, as you said, is a population of not many.
And thus there are only 2 hotels there. That's why folks do not stay in Dyersville when they come to the game. So,
Precisely. Scott, well, before we let you go, I want to go back to this identity you will have for the game, this throwback identity.
Yeah.
The Bunnies. There's been a lot of different baseball team names through the course of professional baseball history. I can't think of any other cities who were named the Bunnies. Why was Cedar Rapids team named the Bunnies?
So I'm going to go back off the story that I think goes back to 130 years. So there are shirts, and they're out there right now. Initially, we were the Canaries in the very first year or two. Apparently we chose the most intimidating mascots they could possibly think of back in the day. Mr. Shucks isn't real intimidating either. So, I get it. But, and then at one point in time, we were so the Rabbits and Bunnies are kind of what they said during that block of time where we were together. The Flying Bunny is now the thing they use. But there's a bunch of shirts out there and they say Cedar Rabbits. And they think that play on the name was how they chose rabbits as the initial thing, and then I don't know why they decided to switch to bunnies. Blue Bunny ice cream's from Iowa, but it wasn't created 125 years ago. So that wasn't a case back then to be able to do that. So, but I think the Cedar Rabbits had a lot to do with it. There's a whole bunch of nostalgia kind of around that in the history museums around here. And I think growing up, I had a t-shirt that said something like that. I had no idea what it meant. But, now I look back on it and think that 20-year span where we were the Rabbits and Bunnies is probably something to do with that. And then we started picking a slightly more intimidating mascots. And then all of a sudden you switched over and started becoming whatever major league affiliate you were forever. And as everybody knows, the way that affiliates had changed in every 2 to 4 years back then, that was really expensive in the souvenir shop when you changed. So, but I can't wait. I'm really excited once the game is played and we have the opportunity to put some Bunny merchandise in. I do anticipate that in 23, I'll be able to, carry and have some Bunny merchandise brought back out. We've always loved the logo. We've done, like I said, we did a throwback in 2004 or 5. It was exciting back then. I can't wait to get some of the Bunnies merchandise back in. And I'm sure at that point in time, I have many of season ticket holders who have been to most of the years we've been around that could tell me some more about how the Bunnies came alive.
Well, the Bunnies are coming alive on Tuesday, August 9th for the MILB, the Minor League Baseball Field of Dreams game in Dyersville, Iowa. Scott, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us about it, and looking forward to seeing you at the game.
I appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Travel safe.
Come to DSW for the shoes, stay for the fun. Because, let's be honest, if shoe shopping isn't fun, are you even doing it right? So go ahead, try something new. Try something different. Good different. Try something that feels like you. The real you. And then definitely brag about it later. Because at DSW, you've got unlimited freedom to play. Find the shoes that get you at prices that get your budget at DSW stores or at DSW.com. Let us surprise you.
Well, as we noted at the start of the show today, the Major League trade deadline was yesterday. We're recording this on Wednesday the 3rd. We wanted to bring you the freshest, hottest takes possible. So here we are on Wednesday after the August 2nd trade deadline, in which a ton of prospects got moved. And in fact, some prospects actually got moved prior to deadline day, including the most highly ranked prospect who was traded ahead of the Major League trade deadline. That was shortstop Noelvi Marte, who went from the Seattle Mariners to the Cincinnati Reds in the Luis Castillo trade. The Reds made several deals. They've kind of reshaped their farm system, but the team with which we need to start is the Washington Nationals, which traded away a generational talent in Juan Soto, but got back a whole bunch of prospect talent in return. Juan Soto and Josh Bell head to the Padres, but there is a group that is headed to the Nationals that is extensive in its prospect talent. That includes shortstop CJ Abrams, who has graduated from his prospect status, but a guy we have followed for a very, very long time. Same thing for Mackenzie Gore, the left-handed pitcher who was the 3rd overall pick in 2017 for the Padres. And then come a lot of the younger talents. Robert Hassel III, the slugging outfield prospect who was taken 8th overall in the 2020 draft, and a guy who has really put an impact on his prospect status this year. James Wood, same deal with him, another outfielder who was the 62nd overall pick in 2021. He's just 19 years old. He'll make that move. Harlan Suzana, right-handed pitcher who's just 18, was signed in the 2022 international signing class by the Padres. He is headed that direction as well, into the nation's capital, or into the at least minor league ranks of the team in the nation's capital. Sam, we start with this because it is the biggest headline of deadline day. I think we're probably both on the same page in that we're, as people who observe baseball, I think you kind of think to yourself, how in God's name do you trade Juan Soto to begin with? But if you're going to, you got to get a ton of talent back, and the Nationals certainly did that.
They did. If we're going off like the freshest, hottest takes of like how to view this package,
Yeah,
I thought it would have to be like earth shattering.
same here.
And I don't think it's that.
Same here.
I don't quite.
Yeah.
It's great. It's like we were talking about it.
It's a
Amongst
lot of
ourselves on the-
talent. It's a
Right.
good haul, but is it
It
a
might be the
Juan
biggest
Soto
haul
haul
ever.
Right.
Yeah, in like
Right.
the modern era in terms of trades in baseball. People have made comparisons to other sports. I'm not going to do that here because I think that doesn't help us, and I want to keep the focus on baseball. But it might be like the biggest haul we've ever seen in the modern era for baseball. It still feels a little short to me. Right now, yes, we focus on prospects here, and Abrams and Gore are no longer prospects, so it doesn't look great when on the surface you're only adding 2 top 100 guys for somebody like Juan Soto. But at the same time, like, they could have added additional names, and I'm sure San Diego would have kept saying yes. Like, you want not just top talent, you want a deeper farm system, because that's one thing the Nats really struggle right now is depth in their farm. Yes, they made a lot of trades last year, including one big one for Trey Turner and Max Scherzer, but that hasn't exactly gotten them into a top 15 system. This might, but it's still not exactly where you need to be if you are going to trade Juan Soto and be like, listen, this is a full rebuild now. I like James Wood a lot. I think he could, he's had some health issues in the first half of the season. All freak stuff doesn't seem like it's a long-term worry. He's massive. He's really tall, but he also plays center field really well. I remember talking to people in spring training, hearing like, hey, listen, if you think he's just fast and he's going to slow down, that's not going to happen. He can play center field. He could be kind of like what O'Neal Cruz is to shortstop. He could be that prospect in center field. Now that he has a long way to go. He's only played single A ball so far. Still a lot to prove. Still needs to pick up at bats, but he makes loud contact. He makes a good amount of contact. He covers a lot of ground in center. Really good prospect. Robert Hassel III, another center field prospect in his own right. The best overall hitter, I think, in this group, and that includes CJ Abrams, because CJ Abrams just hasn't found ways to impact the ball at the upper levels. But he can really hit it. He's showing burgeoning power. I talked to him in the spring. He said, listen, I've always hit home runs. Home runs are going to come. He's close to meeting his 2021 total already. That's only going to increase as he gets older, as he gets stronger. Not that really worried about him. And Susana is really good. Like, Susana is as good a complex level pitcher as you're going to find. The Padres only signed him in January. He's already touching 102. He's sitting around 98. So the fastball is there. The secondaries need to come. The command needs to be there. He has a long road ahead of him. Anything could happen there. He is very much a lottery ticket, but he's very exciting for a guy who just entered pro ball 8 months ago. So there are the exciting pieces there. It's just the Nats system isn't where I thought it would need to be. I thought maybe you could throw in a Jackson Merrill, who isn't a top 100 prospect now because, he, again, like Wood, he's been out for a lot of the first half. But when he's played, he's been super exciting as a shortstop. Another premium position prospect. I thought they could have thrown him in. The Padres probably would have said yes. The other thing about this deal that we haven't mentioned yet, Josh Bell was included.
Yeah.
If we took Josh Bell away from this trade and it was just these guys for Juan Soto, I'd be like, that's still a little short. Now all of a sudden you throw in an all-star caliber first baseman. I know, there's a lot of NL first baseman. Josh Bell's been really good in the first half.
Really, really good.
You could have spun him off in a separate deal and got a few extra other pieces. Not that I'm saying they should have traded him to another team, but you could have done this deal for Juan Soto and then went back to the Padres and said, okay, give us your number 5 and 7 prospect for Josh Bell, and nobody would have batted an eye. Now, there's like lots of other pieces of this that we don't need to get into because we're a minor league podcast, and like the Eric Hosmer part of it, how that didn't happen and ended up being Luke Voigt, all that.
Interesting prospect going the other way in the Eric Hosmer deal too, though. Jay Groom, who is a former very highly ranked prospect, goes from the Red Sox organization who drafted him in the first round to San Diego. So there are interesting elements across the board. But yeah, it just, we were talking last week about the parameters that this deal was going to need to fall into in order to be sort of what we thought it would be. And it, I don't know if, now granted, all of these guys could blow up and be, major league all-stars and all of that. But it's Juan Soto. It's literally Juan Soto going the other way. You have 2.5 years of team control for a guy who's got similar numbers to Ted Williams and Mickey Mantle at this stage in his career.
And who is younger than Mackenzie Gore.
Right. Yeah. Incredible.
They're right around the same age. Let me double check that as I'm saying it. But still, like when we talk about some of these prospects, some of them are Juan Soto's age.
Exactly. Juan Soto was younger than a handful of guys who were playing in the futures game. And he's been in the big leagues for 4 years. It's just, it is a stunning deal. Is there any team in sports that has had a weirder 5-year span, let's say, than the Washington Nationals? I mean, you look at the Nationals, they won a World Series 3 years ago, but also over the last 5 years, they've lost Bryce Harper, Juan Soto, Trey Turner, Max Scherzer, Anthony Rendon. Like, you see all of this talent just bled out of that franchise. And yeah, there are exciting pieces that come back now. But man, it's got to be a tough day to be a Nats fan.
Yeah, and I will correct myself real quick. Juan Soto is 4 months older than Mackenzie.
4 months older.
My point stands.
Still.
Just save your emails. That's all I'm saying. Save your tweets, save your emails. Let's be accurate. But yeah, somebody's put this out there too. Like, it almost feels like Ben talked about a troll earlier. Imagine if a troll came to you with a deal and just said, hey, your team is going to win a World Series. Awesome. I will take it. That sounds great. Okay. But you're going to have, like, let's say they asked this question in 2014. Like, but I mean, it's going to come without Bryce Harper. Okay. Really? The Nats are going to win without Bryce? Yes, it's going to come without Bryce Harper. All right. Well, you're going to give Steven Strasburg a major contract. Great. He's not really going to pitch much under that contract. Really? Okay. You're going to have this great kid who blows up at 19 years old. He's going to be the star of that World Series team. Amazing. He's going to be traded 3 years later. Okay. Like, it's just like the Faustian bargains that are being made to get that trophy, which flags fly forever. It's great that DC has a World Series winner. And that was a great World Series run. That was a great team, very enjoyable team to watch. It's just so crazy that we're already here talking about them potentially entering a rebuild and trading. And I think, we talked about this last week. Mike Rizzo said this didn't enter the conversation. I think that's some spin. I really do wonder how much the ownership change is really playing a role here. If they were looking at the roster as it's currently made and said, hey, we need to enter a rebuild right now.
Yeah.
And that's going to mean trading Juan Soto potentially before he becomes a free agent. Do the next owners want to do that? Probably not. I'm sure there's no back channel discussions of like the new owner saying, hey, if you're going to do it now. We're not going to buy the team. But it just makes it an easier sell to be like, we're going to buy the team this offseason and it's going to be remade in our image. We're going to be the ones guiding it to be the next contender in DC. I'm sure that played a role, whether they're going to acknowledge it or not, because otherwise, why make this trade? Why make this trade?
crazy, man. It is crazy. And also, if you're somebody who's rich enough to own a major league sports franchise, I think your MO should be, no, keep Juan Soto. We'll figure out a way to sign him when we buy this team. But it's not my money. We're not going to discuss the major league side of it, obviously, as a minor league podcast, but the line flags fly forever. Man, if I'm a Padres fan and AJ Preller is doing what he's doing and that ownership group is behind what he's doing, what an exciting time for that team, for that fan base. And it's something that I think we don't see enough of in sports these days, is a team saying, screw it, we're putting all of our chips into the center of the table. We are going for it. And seeing teams going for it is very exciting. You mentioned the kind of the deal with the devil that the Nationals may have had to make. It does kind of remind you of the Cubs. The Cubs won it in 2016. They dismantle that core very quickly as well. Again, behind an ownership group that has gobs of money. And that was a strange situation that continues to go on and be strange. And maybe strangest is the fact that we wake up on August 3rd, Wilson Contreras is still a member of the Cubs. That's a little baffling, but there are a lot of teams out there who are trying to figure out what they are going forward. It's I'm very much a fan of teams that say we are going for it. And it was not just the Padres who did it, maybe not to the same extent, but the Seattle Mariners go out and they get the best pitcher on the market in being able to snag Luis Castillo from the Reds. And they give up a lot of talent in that deal. Noelvi Marte goes the other way. He's the number 17 ranked overall prospect in baseball, according to our rankings. And now he's the top prospect in that Reds system. The Reds made some moves. They brought in a lot of talent. But I like what the Mariners did there. Did they get Juan Soto? No. But did they bolster something that everybody wants to bolster in July and August by adding a top flight pitcher at the trade deadline? Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, that trade felt like a market setter. Like when that happened first, and I was like, oh, if this is where we're setting it for Luis Castillo, who is not Juan Soto, and I think has a year less of control.
Right.
Then I'm like, okay, so now we know just how further above that trade needs to go. I do think the Nats package is better, but it's not significantly better. But anyways, to your point about the Mariners Reds trade to begin with, that's as close to a win-win trade as I think you're ever going to find. Because the Mariners system, like you're saying right now, this is an organization that is trying to get better. They have tried to improve. They made moves in the offseason. They added Julio Rodriguez on opening day. I know he's out injured now, but is basically the runaway favorite to win AL Rookie of the Year. Is the most exciting player they've had probably since Ichiro, I guess. I was going to say Griffey, but we'll say Ichiro. They are making moves to be part of this expanded AL playoff picture. And they're not quite there yet. So they need something to push them over the edge. Luis Castillo could push them over the edge. He could be their game one starter in any playoff series. But they have had such a long drought that I'm sure they're more desperate than any franchise in baseball to just
the longest drought in major American professional sports. Mariners have not made the playoffs since 2001.
Right. So the Reds, maybe knowing that and knowing that Jerry DiPoto is a noted trader, and I say trader with a D, not with a T.
He's a riverboat gambler.
Yeah, a guy who's willing to make moves probably said, okay, great. You can have our best pitcher, one of the best pitchers in baseball, some of the best stuff in baseball, and it's going to cost you a significant part of your depth. And it's going to cost players at premium positions. It's going to cost Noelvi Marte, who's gotten really hot lately. I think answered some of the questions all of us had in the first half about his hitting ability at high A. Edwin Arroyo, who's a breakout prospect this year, a second rounder from last year, who was a good defender at shortstop, had some questions about the bat. Now is one of their most productive hitters in the Mariners system before this trade. Getting those two guys is big for Luis Castillo. And you look at the Reds system now, it's one of the best in baseball. I don't know exactly where, I haven't charted out where I would place them right now, but you have Noelvi Marte at shortstop, maybe a third baseman. Elly De La Cruz, who might be one of the most electric players in minor league baseball, has since been called up to Double-A, so he won't share an infield with Marte yet. Shortstop / third baseman. I would love to see him play center field at some point. Matt McClain was their first-round pick last year. He's a shortstop. Arroyo, who I just mentioned, is a shortstop. Jose Barrero, not technically a prospect, but was just a AAA, got called up today to Cincinnati. They're loaded up at premium positions. You can move those guys around. Eventually, it'll sort itself out. But the Reds are loaded up now at just the right spots.
And if that is a team that, has tried to say, hey, listen, this year we're not competing, we are trying to build up the farm system, this is the way you do it. And they got super exciting. So I like the Mariners may have increased their playoff odds like 5%, which might be enough. Like when there are multiple wild card spots now, that might be just enough. They learned in a very painful way what a 5% difference can mean to you last year. And if you're just saying like, well, all they're trying to do is make the playoffs, again, that means more out there just to get to the playoffs. And I think we lose sight of the fact that sometimes expanded playoffs means more chances for something to go weird. One team gets hot in October, and that's all it's going to take to run train. Like the Dodgers and Yankees might be the two best teams in baseball, throwing the Mets in there too. They can have a bad stretch in October and it's over. One team can get hot and make a run. How many wild card teams have we seen win World Series? So all you need is a seat at the dance. And the Mariners are trying harder than ever to get there. And good on them.
And remember, new playoff format in 2022. Top two teams in each league get a bye into the divisional round, or into the division series, I should say. I don't want to say divisional round and sound like I'm projecting the NFL playoffs. So the division series will automatically see the 1 and 2 seeds in each league host the winner of the 6-3 and 5-4 best of 3 wild card series. So that's something to keep in mind as the playoffs get closer and closer. Sam, who else stood out to you as far as deals that went down at the deadline? The Angels, I think baseball fans have been pulling for the Angels to get it figured out for the last several years. So Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani can finally play some meaningful postseason games. They sold quite a bit. They brought in some very good talent. Logan O'Hoppe is their new top prospect in that system. He is their new and only top 100 prospect as well. He's number 86 overall. So that's kind of interesting. Only one, I would be remiss if I did not point this out. Only one team in baseball made 0 moves. The Colorado Rockies, for very Rockies reasons, just decided, we're 22.5 back in the division, 10.5 back in the wild card. We'll stand pat. We're fine. And there were teams that I think continued looking at what their next step is. We saw the Marlins making moves. We saw the Twins making moves. There are so many teams that are kind of in that spot right now where you look at them and think, okay, is this team going to win the division? The Twins are a game up right now in the American League Central. Did their deals get them to a division title? The Marlins are 8.5 back in the wild card. Do they continue building around this young core and push themselves to chase down the Mets or Atlanta? What else stood out to you?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the Angels because we did talk about this last week, and anybody looking for us to pick up the conversation about could Ohtani be traded, that didn't happen. Like the Angels did shut that down a little bit before the trade deadline day itself. So we knew that wasn't going to happen, but they were still sellers. And that Logan O'Hoppe trade is fascinating to me because he went straight up for Brandon Marsh, who is a former top 100 prospect, a bona fide center fielder, can really play out there, but has struggled offensively in the majors, has not clicked. Do the Phillies think they can figure something out with him, or are they just buying somebody, who they think can play center field? I think JT Realmuto being in Philly obviously, usurps the importance of a Logan O'Hoppe, as good as Logan O'Hoppe is. I love his defensive skills behind the plate. I think he's a real leader back there. He's shown some offensive improvements this year at AA Reading. Reading is a hitter's park, so you have to take that with a grain of salt. But, you would think Brandon Marsh at one point seemed like the future of the Angels outfield alongside Mike Trout. And for them to sell him for a guy who, could be now the catcher of the future was just such a fascinating trade from both sides. Like the Phillies get somebody who's very controllable, but they're selling one of their few top 100 prospects to make it happen. I just find that deal fascinating. Does Marsh really move the needle for them? We'll see. They have to be the ones to figure out if he can hit and improve his hitting ability to make him stick. Are they going to regret O'Hoppe? We'll see. I mean, is the bat going to be good enough, or is he just going to be a solid defensive catcher for years? We'll have to work that out. He's probably going to debut next year. So I just thought that was fascinating. If you're the Angels, you like adding a top 100 prospect. You like at least having a shining star in that system now. That's pretty big. But you look at some of these other deals. I think Oakland, making some moves for some pitching. I'm a big Ken Waldichuk fan. having watched a few of his outings. His slider is really, really good. His fastball is good. He said he basically just has pitches that he aims at all 4 quadrants of the zone and just lets them ride. His slider's always going to be cutting arm side. So, if he wants to go inside on right-handers, he can use the slider. If he wants to go away from lefties, whatever. I wrote up a story about him. You can check that out about Ken Waldchuk. Just search Ken Waldchuk in my name, and that'll pop up, and you see how killer his stuff is. But he learned that from the Yankees. The slider is the whirly that the Yankees have taught. What happens when you get him out of that system, we'll see. He was already knocking on the door of the majors, so Oakland getting a potential rotation piece I think is pretty big. But yeah, it was a crazy deadline. We got the big blockbuster, not quite as big as we thought. We got another big blockbuster in Luis Castillo, which again I thought would be the market setter, that it wasn't quite. And yeah, well, this feels like, with the amount of prospects moved and the amount of big prospects moved, this feels like a deadline that won't be just defined by what happens now, like what happens in San Diego now that Juan Soto's there, what happens in Seattle. That's how we're going to view it immediately. But years down the line, who of these prospects are we going to say, like, they really gave up him? Can you believe that? Like, that, what were they not seeing at the time? That's certainly potential. I think there's the potential for that with James Wood. If he continues on his path, I think there's potential for that with an Edwin Arroyo. Even if Spencer Steer, who joined the Reds organization from the Twins in a Tyler Mahle trade, he was on the cusp of the top 100, kind of top 100 adjacent, but he can really, really hit, and he's another infield option there for Cincinnati. So yeah, we'll check back in on this deadline in a few years, but it's going to be memorable no matter what.
So you can check out all of our coverage, MLB.com/pipeline, MILB.com as well, and take a look at the prospects that your team brought in or shipped out, unless you're a Rockies fan. And with that, we'll step aside. Josh Jackson joins us for Ghosts of the Minors coming up next, and then we're back to wrap it up.
This week, as I'm trapped in the old windmill, hiding out from a horde of torch-bearing villagers. For the answer to the last Ghost of the Miners, tune into the next Ghost of the Miners.
Thanks as always to Joshua Jackson. We'll have some cool Ghosts-esque things on the sites next week for the Field of Dreams game. And before we get out of here, time to tell you about the games that we're watching on MILB.TV next week. The MLB or the MILB game at the Field of Dreams will be carried on MLB Network. So you don't need a MILB TV subscription for that. But while you're waiting for it, or while you're immersed in your love of minor league baseball after it, you can watch some games, and Sam and I will give you some options. How about that?
Yeah, I was going to say Midwest League baseball on national TV just excites me no matter the venue. Yeah,
pretty cool.
Hopefully that's a thing that can continue to happen in the future. I'm going to go as you are going to go, Tyler, and this was your idea first, so I want to give you all the credit. But in terms of, the trade deadline just happened. There are going to be guys going to new teams. Some of that has already happened. The Nets today have said that James Wood will be going to Fredericksburg, their single A affiliate. Makes sense. He was playing in single A in the Padres system. Still has some at-bats to make up after, again, some injuries in the first half. So Fredericksburg is at home next week. They're hosting Augusta. Those games are on MILB TV. Again, you're going to want to watch James Wood just because of how big he is, how athletic he is, and how surprisingly athletic he is. He might surprise you if you just look at him and think like, okay, well, this guy's going to be big and slow. He's probably a corner guy. No, he's definitely a center fielder. So having him join up with Fredericksburg, I think, is going to give Nats fans just what they're looking for at a time when, most of their attention is probably going to be paid towards their minor league affiliates. You're going to want to know what these guys look like. What was the point of trading Juan Soto, if not to get back prospects? Get a good opportunity next week to watch Fredericksburg at home and get a first look at James Wood. Tyler, what are you watching?
I am going to go to that very Midwest League where Noelvi Marte will join the Dayton Dragons. Dayton fans got a chance to watch Ellie De La Cruz. Now they're going to get Noelvi Marte. They've had a whole bunch of fun talent come through in one of the minor league's coolest and most unique venues and fan bases, the Dayton Dragons. They are at home this weekend against Peoria. and then at home next week against Lansing. So you can catch all those games at MILB.tv, and should be a fun couple of weeks coming up in the minors, especially next week with the Field of Dreams game in Iowa. So travel safe, enjoy the time. We'll get a chance to hear all about it and to break it all down, and have fun, man.
Yeah, hopefully Ben and I are still on talking terms after driving
never know
through
after a
multiple
road
states
trip.
and half the country. I know. I think we're going to learn things about each other that after years of working together and doing this podcast every week, there's still probably things we're going to learn.
It's always dodgy.
Which I think is going to be a good thing. I'm going to put my flag down and say we're going to come out closer as people, closer as human beings after this trip. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm very excited.
I like the positivity. For Benjamin Hill, Josh Jackson, and Sam Dykstra, my name is Tyler Mon, and rest in peace, Vin Scully. I'll talk to you next week.